The studio was buzzing. Music thumped through the room, lights swept across the crowd, and the audience was loud in that familiar late-night way, cheering, clapping, laughing, ready for jokes and quick punches. But the moment Trump stepped through the curtain, the studio stopped feeling like a comedy show and started feeling like a room that had lost control of its own schedule. Colbert stood to greet him, keeping the host's smile locked in place, but for a split second the mask slipped. Before Colbert could even finish the welcome, Trump cut in, voice confident, almost casual. "Stephen, relax," he said, smirking. "This is the biggest ratings moment you've had since you stopped being funny." The crowd laughed, but it fractured. Some laughs were loud, some were nervous, some people didn't laugh at all. That line wasn't a joke, it was a message. Trump was setting the tone, making it clear he didn't come to play the guest. He came to flip the power dynamic and embarrass the host on his own stage. He kept going, piling on without waiting for a response. "Let's be honest," he added, gesturing around the studio. "This place talks about me every night. Tonight, you finally get the real thing instead of pretending you're brave." Trump's attack was very blunt, and Colbert didn't interrupt. He just watched, hands folded, letting Trump talk himself into the center of the frame. The silence from the host made Trump louder, sharper, more aggressive. Because Trump didn't come for laughs, he came because the internet was on fire. A viral rumor, unverified and ugly, had spread fast online, getting clipped, reposted, and turned into political ammunition. People weren't treating it like gossip anymore. They were treating it like a weapon, and Trump hated one thing more than bad press: losing control of a story. He snapped again. "This isn't gossip. This is a coordinated smear. You know it. Everybody knows it." He pointed vaguely toward the camera, toward the crowd, toward the idea of enemies he didn't bother naming. "People think they can say anything now, hide behind jokes, hide behind comedy. I'm here to shut that down." He leaned back, arms spread slightly, daring Colbert to challenge him. "You want to talk about lies?" Trump said. "Let's talk about who profits from them." The room tightened again. Trump leaned back, crossed one leg over the other, and smiled like someone who already believed the outcome was settled. "Let's stop pretending," he said, voice smooth but sharp. "This show runs on my oxygen. You mention me every night, you clip me every morning, and without my name, this desk is just furniture." A few laughs popped out late, unsure. Trump nodded like he expected applause. "You don't interview me, Stephen. You rent me. And tonight?" He leaned forward, eyes locked in. "Your lease is up." The words landed heavy, less joke than declaration, and the audience felt it immediately. He didn't pause long enough for Colbert to respond. Trump kept pressing, stacking pressure like he was daring the room to push back. "You call this comedy," he said, sweeping his hand across the set. "I call it dependency. You pretend you're fearless, but you need me more than I need this place." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Without me, you're just another guy reading jokes off a card, hoping Twitter's still awake." The laughter thinned even more. People shifted in their seats. The tone had crossed a line, and everyone knew it, even if no one said it out loud. Then Trump went after Colbert's credibility, not his punchlines. His voice dropped, slower now, more deliberate. "You play referee on TV," he said, pointing toward the camera instead of Colbert. "But you're not neutral. You're a mouthpiece, a script reader for people who already decided who they hate." He turned back to Colbert, eyes narrowing. "You're protected. You get to swing because you know no one's swinging back. That's not courage. That's insulation." A murmur rolled through the crowd. This wasn't roast territory anymore. This was an attempt to strip the host of authority on his own stage. Trump tapped the desk once, hard enough for the mic to catch it. "You pretend to ask questions," he continued, "but you're playing the whole game. Same talking points, same faces clapping, same elites laughing at the same jokes." He scoffed. "You're not holding power accountable. You're entertaining it." The accusation hung in the air, ugly and sharp. Trump leaned back again, satisfied, like he'd just planted a flag. He was daring Colbert to fight him on Trump's terms. Loud, emotional, explosive. Colbert didn't give him that. He didn't rush. He didn't interrupt. He let the words sit there exposed long enough for the audience to feel how aggressive they really were. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost casual, which somehow made it sting more. "I'm not competing with you, Mr. President," he said, hands folded, eyes steady. "I'm just keeping time while you perform." The pause that followed was brutal. Laughter broke out, not wild or joyful, but sharp and knowing, aimed at the contrast between bluster and control. Trump smiled again, but this time it didn't hold. His jaw tightened just a touch, and his eyes flicked toward the audience, measuring the reaction. He nodded once, slow, like he was recalculating. The crowd hadn't turned on him, but they hadn't lined up behind him either. The shift didn't happen with a punchline. It happened when Colbert stopped filling the space. He let the noise drain out of the room on its own, and the silence felt intentional, almost heavy, like someone had shut a door everyone forgot was open. He straightened in his chair, shoulders squared, eyes steady, and when he spoke again, the tone was different. Flat, formal, controlled. It didn't sound like a host setting up a joke. It sounded like someone calling a room to order. "I don't invite guests to look bad," he said evenly. "I invite them to tell the truth without a megaphone." The line didn't chase laughs, and none came. The audience felt it immediately. This wasn't comedy pacing anymore. Trump tried to smash through that calm the way he always did. Faster, louder, sharper. He leaned forward, words stacking over each other, voice climbing. "That's a nice line, Stephen, but—" he started, waving a hand like he was brushing something off the table. Colbert lifted one finger, not aggressive, not dramatic, just enough to break the rhythm. The studio froze. Trump's face hardened. "You don't get to one moment the president," he snapped, voice tight with irritation. Colbert didn't raise his voice, didn't smile, didn't apologize. "I'm not stopping you," he said calmly. "I'm just preventing you from changing the subject." The reaction wasn't laughter this time. It was silence, sharp and focused. Trump shook his head, scoffing, trying to turn it back into noise. "This is what you do," he shot back. "You slow things down so you can sound serious, so you can pretend you're above it." He gestured toward the crowd. "They eat that up." Colbert didn't bite. He leaned in slightly, voice steady, eyes locked. "You didn't come here to talk about me," he said. "You came here because something's out there." The words cut through the bluster. "There are reports circulating. There are photos being shared. They're unverified, but they exist, and people are seeing them." A ripple moved through the audience. No gasps, just tension tightening. "This isn't gossip in a group chat," Colbert added. "This is online, everywhere, right now." Trump tried to interrupt again, louder this time. "Fake," he said. "All fake. Garbage." He laughed sharply, like volume alone could crush the moment. Colbert didn't argue the claim. He didn't even react to the insult. He stayed where he was. "Then this should be easy," he said almost gently. "If it's fake, this is your easiest win." He paused, letting the words sink in, letting Trump feel the eyes on him. "Clear it up. Straight. No detours." Trump opened his mouth, then closed it again, jaw flexing. Colbert waited, then finished quietly. "If it's not, this is your hardest night." The room went still, like a courtroom after a question no one expected. The laughter was gone completely. Nobody was there for jokes anymore. People leaned forward without realizing it, watching Trump instead of reacting to him. The tempo he relied on had disappeared, replaced by a slow, deliberate pace he didn't control. Trump sat back, lips pressed thin, eyes moving from Colbert to the crowd and back again, sensing the shift but unable to reverse it. Trump tried to take the wheel back by sounding outraged instead of threatened. He shook his head slowly, lips curling with disgust, like the whole conversation was beneath him. "This is disrespectful," he said flatly. "This is beneath the office. You're taking trash from the internet and dressing it up like responsibility." His voice rose just enough to reclaim attention. "You're laundering lies through comedy because you're afraid to say them like a journalist." A few people in the crowd murmured, not in agreement, but in recognition of the tactic. Trump wasn't answering anymore. He was reframing himself as the victim of something ugly and unfair. He leaned into that posture, hands open, palms up, selling moral outrage. This is how you people do it, he went on. You hide behind jokes so you don't have to own what you're pushing. He glanced around the studio like he was appealing to a jury. You know exactly what you're doing. You float poison, then pretend your hands are clean. The intensity dipped just a notch, but the edge stayed sharp. Trump wanted dignity back. He wanted the room to see him as the adult being dragged down into nonsense, not the man under pressure. Colbert didn't challenge the emotion. He didn't push back on the insult. He just narrowed the frame. I'm not accusing you, Mr. President, he said calmly, almost gently. I'm not saying it's true. He paused, letting the distinction settle. I'm asking you to answer what millions already believe they've seen. That sentence shifted the ground again. It wasn't about Colbert's opinion. It wasn't about comedy. It was about public perception, and Trump knew how dangerous that was. Colbert kept his tone neutral, disciplined. This conversation exists whether we have it or not. Trump opened his mouth to fire back, then hesitated. He wasn't used to this angle, so he did the thing he'd come to avoid. He started explaining. He talked about timelines, about how things get misread online, about how photos get taken out of context. He gestured, trying to organize the air in front of him. People don't understand how this works, he said, voice defensive now. They don't understand process or optics or how fast lies spread. The crowd noticed it immediately. This wasn't command language anymore. This was justification. Colbert leaned back in his chair and folded his hands, saying nothing. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react. He just watched. And the longer Trump talked, the clearer it became that the balance had shifted. The most powerful man in the room was now answering questions no one had formally asked, filling silence he didn't control, explaining details he never planned to explain. The audience felt it, not as drama, but as a slow realization. Colbert didn't raise his voice or lean forward. He did the opposite. He simplified. He looked straight at Trump and tightened the frame until there was nowhere to hide. One sentence, he said calmly, almost politely. No rally, no detour. The room felt smaller the moment he said it. Are the rumor materials false? Yes or no? The question wasn't aggressive, but it was unforgiving. It stripped away speeches, blame, and performance, leaving only a clean edge that demanded a clean answer. The audience leaned in without realizing it, like they were watching a lock click into place. Trump smiled, but it came out wrong. Too quick, too sharp. See, this is what they do, he shot back, waving a hand as if brushing off dirt. They take a family and turn it into a weapon. His voice picked up speed, volume climbing. Media, bloggers, political enemies. They don't care who they hurt as long as it gets clicks. He pointed toward Colbert. Not quite accusing, but close enough. And you give them a stage. You give them credibility. The words spilled out faster now, layered with grievance and suspicion. It didn't sound like confidence. It sounded like urgency. Colbert didn't argue the point. He didn't defend himself. He just waited for Trump to finish digging. Then he spoke, quiet and precise. If it's nothing, he asked, eyes steady, why did you walk into my studio like it was a crisis briefing? The question landed harder than any insult. It didn't accuse. It exposed. The room went still again, the kind of stillness where people stopped blinking. Trump's shoulders shifted. His posture changed, subtle but obvious. Less forward, more guarded. Colbert didn't raise his voice or rush his words. He leaned slightly forward, eyes steady, and laid it out with careful precision, like he was placing evidence on a table without claiming ownership of it. There are reports circulating online, he said evenly. There are photos being shared, used to push a timeline. They're unverified. I'm not calling them true. He paused just long enough for the audience to process that distinction. But they exist. They're spreading, and people are seeing them right now. A wave of tension rolled through the studio. You could hear it in the sharp inhales, the shifting in seats. Not because anyone believed it, but because it was being said out loud on live television, straight to Trump's face. Trump exploded out of his chair space, leaning forward, voice cracking through the calm like a siren. Fake, all fake, he snapped, pointing hard enough that his finger shook. This is garbage, absolute garbage. His words came fast now, layered with anger. You're taking internet trash and turning it into a spectacle. He jabbed the air again, eyes burning. You're going to regret making my family your punchline. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't even an argument. It was a warning, delivered with volume and heat, meant to scare the room back into submission. A few people in the crowd stiffened. No one laughed. No one clapped. Colbert didn't move. He didn't lean back. He didn't flinch. He waited until Trump ran out of momentum, until the shouting had nowhere left to go. Then he spoke, calm to the point of discomfort. Then take the win, he said quietly. The softness of it cut sharper than any insult. Disprove it. Right now. He let the words hang before finishing the thought. Cleanly, clearly, for the people watching. The tone wasn't mocking. It was procedural, almost cold. He wasn't attacking Trump anymore. He was handing the moment back to him and stepping aside. Trump tried to fill the gap with noise again. I don't owe this room anything, he snapped. I don't answer to internet lies. His voice rose, but it sounded thinner now, stretched. Colbert didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. He simply added one more line, slow and deliberate, eyes never leaving Trump's. Because if you can't, he said, pausing just long enough to lock the room in place, the rumor isn't the problem. The silence is. The sentence landed like a final stamp. No drama, no flourish. Just wait. The studio went completely still. Not the quiet before laughter, not the quiet before applause. This was the kind of silence that feels exposed. Trump opened his mouth, then closed it. He shifted in his seat, adjusted his jacket, glanced at the audience like he was searching for traction that wasn't there anymore. The force he'd relied on all night had nothing left to push against. The segment didn't land. It collapsed into the outro. A producer flashed the signal too fast and the band jumped in with music that sounded wildly out of place, bright and upbeat against a room that felt bruised. Applause came in patches, late and uncertain, like people weren't sure if clapping was appropriate or just expected. Trump stood up a second too quickly, chair legs scraping loud enough to cut through the music. He forced a smile that never reached his eyes and leaned in for a handshake that barely lasted a beat. We're done here, he muttered under his breath, half to Colbert, half to himself, before turning away. Around the set, producers rushed in close, whispering urgently, trying to stitch normalcy back onto a moment that had already slipped out of their hands. Backstage, the mood was tense. Phones were already lighting up, assistants talking fast, someone asking who cleared what line and when. Trump didn't linger. He waved off a handler, jaw tight, and walked straight past the cameras like they'd stopped mattering. Colbert stayed seated, posture unchanged, eyes forward, waiting for the lights to cool down. He didn't celebrate. He didn't explain. He just let the moment end where it ended, which somehow made it feel even heavier. The damage wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, and that made it worse. By the next morning, nobody was arguing about comedy. The clips that went viral weren't jokes. They were pauses, still frames, and Trump's face right after the final line landed. Headlines didn't ask who won. They asked who controlled the room. Commentators split into camps instantly. Colbert crossed a line, one side said. He dragged something personal into a space meant for laughs. The other side fired back harder. He didn't accuse, they said. He asked what millions are already talking about. And he didn't let power yell its way out. Social media chewed it up, replaying the same few seconds over and over, dissecting tone, posture, silence. Like evidence in a trial no one agreed on, but everyone watched. Trump's defenders called it an ambush, a cheap shot dressed up as responsibility. His critics called it exposure, saying he walked in swinging and walked out explaining. The loudest arguments weren't even about the rumor anymore. They were about control. Who had it? Who lost it? And why shouting suddenly didn't work. The moment stuck because it wasn't flashy. There was no knockout punch, no meltdown. Just a powerful man forced to answer instead of command. Forced to react instead of set the pace. The takeaway settled in cold and political. The kind of lesson that doesn't fade with the news cycle. Trump came in to dominate a comedian, to bend a stage to his will and close a story by force. He left with a story wider than before, framed by restraint instead of volume. Power doesn't vanish when it's challenged. It vanishes when it loses rhythm, when it can't control the tempo of the room. And the last image said everything without a single word. Colbert still sitting there after the cameras cut, hands folded, expression unchanged, like the night never knocked him off balance, because it never did. If you watched this unfold and felt that shift in the room, you're not alone. And this conversation doesn't end when the cameras cut. Moments like this are why power, media, and politics collide in ways that matter far beyond entertainment. If you want more breakdowns of these high-pressure confrontations, where composure clashes with force and silence speaks louder than shouting, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Drop your take in the comments. Did Colbert cross a line, or did Trump walk straight into a question he couldn't control? And if you think moments like this deserve deeper analysis instead of quick headlines, hit like and stay with us. The next clash is already coming.